What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of V4 Higurashi When They Cry Go. This is episode 18, and as always, I have Blue Spade.
This episode does not pick up where the last episode left off. However, this episode is more or less, I would say, the start of an epilogue story of what happened after the events of Higurashi Kai. Because pretty much the episode, we pretty much get the last. Well, I think one of the last major scenes that happened by the end of Higurashi Kai, with Takano surrendering herself, to the authorities and getting treatment for supposedly because she had Hinamizawa syndrome or something like that, and then shortly afterwards, the episode skips forward 1 year later and details the events of what happened, to all the main characters after the events of Higurashi Kai, just pretty much moving on with their lives, and then and then just pretty much going to school like they do normally. However, we noticed that Mion is no longer attending the school there.
Yeah, and they say the reason for that is because she graduated and, of course, is now attending the the St. Lucia Academy.
Yeah, and I also noticed that Hanyu is not even there as well, and I'm curious as to why they haven't even mentioned her throughout the entire episode. I mean, she was there by the end of Higurashi Kai, but now she's nowhere to be found nor even mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know if they really follow up on that in the original visual novel, but I don't think they really do in the anime, or at least in the original anime.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much this entire episode, just nothing crazy really happened. I think this is just the start of a new story arc that detailing what happened after the events of Kai, but more than likely it'll answer our questions as to what happened after after what we saw in the last episode.
I mean, it's pretty much for the most part, yeah, like you said, nothing huge really happens. It's we kind of get a sense for what's going on with everybody after the events of Kai, after a year after that. Keiichi is now taking the position of the student council president, and he's Mion isn't there anymore, so I guess he's the one who's I guess technically now the leader of their club or whatever it is, their game club. And then we see all the other kids now, I guess, are going to join in their club activities, I suppose. And basically everybody looks a little bit older, but it's really kind of hard to tell a difference with characters like Keiichi and Rena, because they pretty much look exactly the same. Sadako has longer hair, and it looks like she's a bit taller. Rika looks a little bit taller, but otherwise she also looks more or less the same. So other than that, there's not really a huge, I mean, it also, they're wearing different uniforms that apparently, according to them, were handed down from Mion, I guess. They were her old uniforms.
Yeah. Yeah, but of course, to Rika, she just leaves, the club early just because she lied, saying that she needs to practice for the festival. However, she just left because she doesn't feel it feels the same as it did the year prior. So she walks just with Sadako, talking about the events of what's been going on a year after the events of Kai, and then they explain everything is changing and everyone's moving on from the events of what happened the year prior. So Rika's taking it upon herself to I guess to move on from those events, and then she meets up with the village elder, just talk.
It was Kimiyoshi and Oryo, or Oryo Sonozaki, and then Kimiyoshi, the mayor, I think.
Yeah, so she asks them for a favor, to make an announcement by the end of the Watanagashi festival. So, by the time the festival starts, she eventually does her ceremonial dance, like she always does, and by the end of it, both the elders come up on stage, and of course, make an announcement talking about what was it, the dam war that happened several years prior, and then they believe that that they should finally move on from those events, and they declare the war on the dam finally over.
Yeah, I guess this was important because as we know, the villages kind of never really got over that, and anyone that supported the dam project was ostracized from the village, and not too long after the Watanagashi festival were murdered, or the ones that were supporters would die in unfortunate accidents. So I guess it made sense why they had to basically say that, and they know that the villagers would actually listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way. It's like I said, it's a way for them to move on from past events, because it was pretty. They believed it was more or less the cause of all the bad blood that happened, during the events, of pretty much the entirety of events of of the Higurashi series, because of people's animosity for people in support of the dam building, and of course, it was also another cause as to why people have this superstition with the whole Hinamizawa syndrome, or the Oyashiro curse.
Yeah. And Rika also chimes in and says that Oyashiro, or Oyashiro is no longer going to curse people or something like that, just basically trying to I guess kind of put those superstitions to rest in a way. I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, for the most part, what happens at the end of the original series was, enough. I feel like it was conclusive enough, but I guess, we kind of get just, them still, there's still, I guess, loose ends in that regard to sort of tie up, and, in regards to the village. After this, of course, we get another scene with Rika and Sadako. And they go into a bookstore, and this is actually the scene that we've seen a brief flashback of before, where Rika is looking at this book, and it's sort of this what was that, a study guide to the entrance exam for the St. Lucia Academy, I think it was. Sadako sees this, and this is where basically Rika tells her what she's planning to do, and she's planning to try to get into St. Lucia Academy. And I think this is part of the apparently the secret she'd been keeping from Sadako, or is she's been doing something Sadako wasn't aware of. I guess maybe she was trying to study so she can get into the academy. So that's pretty much where this episode ends too. Sadako just kind of
I also feel like that she was trying to have Sadako join into St. Lucia as well, because
she did say that. So that's one of the things that kind of confused me too, because it did seem like Rika wanted to take her with her, she wasn't just going to leave Hinamizawa and leave her there, because that seemed to be the root of Sadako's Sadako's problems with Rika is that she left her behind, but it seemed like Rika was not going to do that, so it kind of leaves me a little bit confused as to, why Sadako did all this. But maybe there's something that happened that we're not aware of as to why Rika left her behind.
Yeah. There was another scene in the middle of this episode we forgot to mention is of course they have another checkup with Dr. Irie.
Right. Yeah. I forgot about
that. Talking about Sadako's repeated treatments, how she needed to take several shots per day to suppress the Hinamizawa syndrome. However, Irie notifies her of her that she doesn't need to take these repeated treatments anymore, and he more likely says that her symptoms are pretty much gone at this point.
And I think Rika wonders how the symptoms could be gone, or how it could have been cured, and Irie doesn't seem to really have an answer for that. And I'm a little bit confused by that as well, because I'm not sure how that happened. Maybe it just has something to do with the village, the quote unquote curse finally being having been sort of, or the loop that at least Rika was stuck in the original series. She broke through that, so maybe it has something to do with that. But it's not entirely clear.
Yeah, I mean, she mentions that. I don't know if it has something to do with Hanyu or if
That's
it
what
has
I was
something
kind
to
of
do with something
thinking,
else. But
like, Hanyu could have indirectly been the cause of that, but it's hard to say. Like, I mean, it seemed like it was more grounded, but I mean, as we know, there are supernatural things in Higurashi, so it's I mean, it's hard to say one way or the other. Like, Inamizawa syndrome has always been a little bit confusing to me. Like, it's probably explained better in the visual novel, but at least from what I remember in the anime, it's like I'm not exactly sure what seems to just like trigger it, and what, if it could even be cured. I mean, as far as we know, the only thing that really seems to trigger it is like you just have to be a resident of the village, and it typically triggers like, specifically after the Watanagashi festival when people start going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not clear. I mean,
and we also, of course, know it was like,
the
military was involved, of course. So like, there's also that. But
yeah, because they were doing a lot of experiments with the whole Hinamizawa stuff. But yeah. So overall, like, I thought this was a decent episode. I mean, it was, it was kind of disappointing that we aren't following up with, with that last, that major twist that we saw in the last episode. But I feel like we really need to get answers. Like,
I think they'll, this is what I think is going to happen. Is I think they'll, like, this arc will play out for how many episodes it's going to happen. For however many episodes, and then once it explains maybe like Sadako's motivations, and we see like, we see everything that happens in this arc, and we finally understand, maybe then it will actually cut back to what happened at the end of the last episode. That's what I think might happen. I was like, that'll be like the real finale of the show. Definitely, because I mean, we were curious, like, even from the start of the show, it's like we've been curious if whether or not this is either a remake, sequel, or reboot. But as the entire show went on, and we didn't find out it was actually a sequel to Kai until like literally by in the middle of the second core of the show. So, but I do feel like that these next sets of episodes, are necessary for us to really understand like what happened after the events of Kai. I mean, it's necessary for people that that have watched like all the previous seasons, but for people that haven't watched it, it's also necessary for them as well. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still think people that haven't watched it can probably watch this, but they would still be confused. Like, that's the only problem. Like, it's almost like you pretty much do need to watch the original series, and it's not the most accessible for newcomers.
And assuming if you can really afford it, like at a reasonable price.
I mean, it does go.
Unfortunately,
but usually it's pretty. Yeah, it is pretty pricey.
Yeah, because like even though like Higurashi goes like licensed by Funimation, unfortunately, none of the previous seasons are available to watch unless if it's on High Dive or anything like that.
Yeah, well,
or if you go on Right
Stuff. It's licensed by Sentai, so that's probably the reason.
Yeah, that's which is kind of the unfortunate thing. But,
I mean, like it's definitely much better than how it was before Sentai licensed the series, because before then, like you could, it was almost impossible. Like you could find the first season, of course, on DVD, but you can't. Season 2 wasn't even available in the West in physical form.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, like it is technically available, unless assuming if you can really afford it. At
well, I mean, compare that to like the first season too. Like before, like I said, Sentai even got the distribution rights to it, because before that, the original series on DVD was like, I want to say it's like it was ridiculous, like $300 or something, just because it's out of print. Like it's very hard to find. So I definitely prefer how it is now as opposed to when they actually didn't. It was actually being distributed, I think, by Genyon Universal. Which is the reason why it was out of print, is because Genyon Universal is like, I think it's no longer in business, so it was just really hard to find. Same with like, I think also same with the original Fate Stay Night as well. I think that was like ADV Films or Genyon or something that was distributing that until Sentai got the original series on Blu-ray.
Yeah. I mean, overall, like like we said, it's not a bad episode. I think these next sets of episodes are necessary for us to understand what happened after the events, of Kai, and will definitely give us some of our answers questions as to what happened after that twist ending in the last episode. But overall, I think I'm definitely gonna like where these next sets of episodes are gonna go, because I definitely want to see those answers, questions answered, after all this time.
I mean, it was just finally like something new, something different. And it's like I said, it is annoying that we've just gotten most of the new stuff in the latter half of the season, and that's probably like the most annoying thing about this new series. But
I mean, at least we don't have to see a rehash of all all the previous plot.
I like, so far, like, my thoughts on this series is like the first half is probably the weakest, just because it does feel like a rehash with some new content added in, and then like the second half is where we actually get the new stuff, and then it's like not until like the tail end, really, where we get totally new content, where it actually takes place after the original series. So the sequel part of it isn't really until like near the end, honestly. So it's just kind of weird in how it worked out. But I'm hoping that it'll actually give us a really decent finale, though, to kind of make up for, in my opinion, what was a bit of a weak start for the series. It did get better as it went on, but it definitely kind of had in my opinion, the beginning, the first half is like the weakest.
It just went on a kind of a slow grind for the last several months, until we got something significant happening in these last few weeks after the second half premiered. But
I don't really have too much else to say about this episode. I thought it was decent. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
No, I think I'm definitely looking forward to what they're going to be showing off with the for this next arc. It's definitely going to it's definitely what I'm wondering. Been wondering about ever since the show started, is like how the hell did Rika get back to getting back in those loops after she got out of it, like back in Higurashi Kai.
That's the biggest question, I think, on everybody's minds. Aside, I mean, we finally have the answer as to who the culprit is, but now I think everybody's really curious as to like the reason behind all of this, and really my other question is like if Sadako is really doing this because she wants to, or is somebody manipulating her. I tend to, my theory is the latter, though. I seriously feel like somebody, like maybe Sadako did feel that way, but somebody was probably manipulating her to some extent. I think that's probably what's happening, because it's really hard to believe Sadako would do all this. Like, I never really would peg Sadako as being this sadistic to put Rika through all this. I mean, it's just hard to believe. So that's why I just feel like it's somebody else's possibly behind it.
Well, there's one thing that that they didn't answer, is like what happened to Satoshi. Well, because that's I remember that. Like, I mean,
Oh, you mean in this arc? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's still in the I guess that secret room they're keeping him in, or if he's still in like a coma.
There's also the factor that Shion also is also promising to constantly visit him over and over again, despite his comatose condition. But we still don't have an answer as to what happened to Satoshi, or whether or not like Sadako knows about what his condition is.
But that all being said, until next Thursday, we will see you all next time.